Hello, everybody. This is Go Do Your Own Research. Go do your own research. Back once again with another live stream for you, where at the moment we are covering the documents in the Blake Lively versus Baldoni, that's Justin Baldoni, lawsuit. So I wanted to say, just in case anyone is interested in why I am taking such an interest in this case, I'm feeling very inspired by the comments I've been getting, even today, because it's not about choosing to do slop videos and gaining a huge audience and doing something you don't believe in. I believe facts matter, believe it or not. And I think the people that watch my channel do as well. So that's what we're about over here. I have been getting some lovely comments, as I said. People are really taking time to say they appreciate that I'm reading this stuff out so they can keep on top of it, keep abreast of it, without actually having to read and look up the documents themselves, because some people find it difficult reading online. And yeah, I'm really happy to do it. I'm really happy to carry on. I feel like I'm learning so much anyway. And I think it's really important that we listen to these testimonies, because we're hearing from the testimonies such a different story to what has been portrayed and the narrative that has been presented by the majority of people for the last nearly coming up to 1 year. And this case is about people in the workplace being treated poorly, being made to accept misogyny as a standard practice, misogyny running rife. Not just misogyny, but showing resentment and anger towards women in the workplace, and not even maintaining like a basic standard. And that's the reason why they hired this crisis PR company and Brian Friedman and chose to sue. It was because they couldn't deal with the reality that they weren't who they pretended to be, that they had no respect for women, and they weren't maintaining a standard. And that's really what this has been about. So, although I say I stay neutral, I don't have an allegiance to either side, but I think that a case like this is really important, because every single person has to deal with some kind of mistreatment in the workplace, especially in the corporate workplace. So I just think that, like, you know, because Blake Lively has money and she's beautiful and she has a husband who's also successful, she's somehow become an easy target because of those things, not despite of those things. She was able to stand up and say something publicly, and now she's being shot down for it. And it's like, you think because she has a comfortable lifestyle, she still isn't aware of that stuff going on. So that's what this has really been about, and that's why I'm going to carry on talking about it, because this lawsuit is only really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Brian Friedman, Jed Wallace, and Melissa Nathan. So let me start by sharing my screen, because tonight we're going to be talking about Jamey Heath. And Jamey Heath was the CEO of Wayfarer and a producer on this film, despite having very little experience. At either. It seems like he really got the job because he was Justin's pal. And he pretty much thinks like Justin, talks like Justin, and does whatever Justin wants, which isn't really the sign of a good leader. Or the sign of a good boss, or the sign of a good person, to be honest. But anyway, we're going to watch this little clip. Let me cue it up. So this is with his family, with his blended family. As you can see, he has worked doing publicity for the Baha'i religion. This is the kind of posts they put out. They believe that people shouldn't see racism, that racism that has happened historically, we should draw a line on it and all just get along. That's their belief system. Right, this is from my video, so I had to put in a trigger warning. But we're going to watch a clip of him on the Man Enough podcast from, I think it was from last year, actually. I think this is from after the movie ended, because the person who's appearing in the podcast, I think his name is Mike. He's actually friends with Jed Wallace, believe it or not. Nature.
When I was 19, I found my mother who tried to take her life. And I've held a lot of pain. My mom's also bipolar. And I've been angry, I'm 54 now, all of my life for what it meant to us.
So in case you didn't catch that, you see how they play the sad music as well? He's talking about how his mother tried to take her own life. And he's now 54 and he still feels very angry about it. And by the way, this was after the guest, who, like I said, I forgot his name. He had just talked about when he had tried to take his own life. And I just feel like this is so like Justin, where that was him talking about something very traumatic. Jamey has to come in with his own story. It's just very odd. But this is the kind of content they have been putting out on this podcast.
My mom and I had a huge fight a month ago, where I said some things that it all came out. All of it came out of my frustration and anger. And, you know, I've been through some things in my life that you know of, and just my own childhood abuse and her not necessarily being present, and blaming her condition and her brain pain. And I have legitimate reason to have my pain.
So he just said that his mom has brain cancer and she was also diagnosed as bipolar. And he thinks that gives him a reason to feel angry.
But maybe not so much legitimate reason to blame her.
Liz Plank, the female co-host of that pod.
So that was like a little clip that I had showed to illustrate him. And I do think that Liz Plank looks like she's finding it hard to deal with. because I just get very me vibes about him, and I just get very unhealthy mentally and unstable vibes from him. And that's if I didn't know any of this other stuff that they do and say. But their behavior is extreme. It's not balanced and it's not stable. And we heard Justin saying, or Justin telling Alex that he hadn't created a safe place you know, at work, and she was like, "That's okay. Like, I don't need you to create a safe space for me," or something like that. But they're obsessed about this thing about safe space, and it's like, but you guys are not safe to be around. And like, that's what everyone's starting to realize. And that's what I'm hearing in all these testimonies in these depositions. So to hear him talking like that about at age 54 years old, he's holding on to so much anger that he can go to his mother, who is obviously suffering with brain cancer, which is a serious illness, and have a go at her. It just blows my mind. Like, why are you telling us about that? And this is the podcast that they say is teaching our men and boys. Like, it's not really teaching them anything good. That's how I feel. I feel like he should be embarrassed about that. But you can see the pain in Liz Plank's face. Because she's kind of like, what did you just tell me? And she's got to act like, no, Jamie, that's fine. Don't worry, you're in a safe space here. And yeah, it just seems like they've surrounded themselves with people that are not going to tell them there's anything wrong with their behavior. For my own part, anyway, having been with a parent who was in the end of life, like, I can't even imagine like putting that onto them. Like, whatever you've been through in your life, when your parent is at that stage, like, what good is it gonna do? Like, expressing stuff like that, like, you just go and do it in another room, or just keep it to yourself. Like, that is not the time to do it. That's how I feel. I really do. I was really upset by watching him make this bit of content, or this bit of content that they've put out. And that's before I even really knew too much about them. So yeah, that was that. Did I have anything else to say? I think we are going to go to my next screen, which is going to be Jamey Heath's deposition. Oh, actually, one more thing. I remember there was more I was going to show before I forget. So it's a good thing I made this video, because I didn't have to go and look all this stuff up again. So yeah, he's actually a speaker for the Baha'i. So I think that's pretty much what he was doing, because that was in 2018. I think that's pretty much what he was doing when he started working for Wayfarer, because he says he started working for Justin in 2020. But the other thing that I know is that, oh yeah, that's his dad. Wait, I'm just trying to get it into the right. Oh, that's him when he was young. So it said he used to travel around with the Baha'i Youth Workshop. Well, they traveled from California to Kansas to perform, and they did like workshops. And then he said that he used to like do talks to the youth about music and stuff. So I think he did do music, but all these credentials that he says he has, I couldn't really find anything. Let me see if I can find the picture. His dad was not a well-known musician, but his dad was in his dad performed with a well-known band, let's say that. I forget what their name is, but they had like one famous song. And they were like, that's him, Walter Heath. So I think that's Jamey posing on the cover of one of his albums. So yeah, they were like sort of semi-well known, but they were known to be Baha'i. So he was brought up in this religion, and he was brought up around these kind of like musicians, from what I can see. So yeah, that's all I've got on Jamey. When he does his talks as well, actually, they're very much about the same thing Justin says about, I've made so many mistakes and that's okay because I've admitted to them, and you can move on if you admit to your mistakes. And then he's like encouraging people in the audience to come and speak to him afterwards and come and have a coffee with him. And I'm like, it just feels very like recruity, and it just reminds me of the Scientology thing, where it's like, come and tell me your secrets, come and tell me your weaknesses, and we can help you do something about that. But really, what are they doing about it? It doesn't seem like much. If by 54 years old, he's still carrying around that much resentment and anger. So yeah, those are my thoughts, having looked at what Jamey Heath has done in his past and presented online, because I didn't have to search too far for this stuff. Now we're going to get to his deposition. Just wanted to show you where it says, there you go. Deposition of Jamey Heath, recorded Wednesday, 8th October 2025. And he starts off by saying his name, which is Jamey Heath, and that he's been previously known as professionally Jamey Jazz, J-A-Z. I don't know what all that redacted stuff is. Then he says that he's sat in on Blake Lively's full deposition, some of Jennifer Abel's, some of Melissa Nathan's, of course Justin Baldoni's, the first 2 hours of Steve Sarowitz, portions of Isabella Ferrer, half of Jenny Slate's, a quarter or so of Colleen Hoover, Ange Janetti, the full deposition, Danny Greenberg, Warren Zavala, Josh Greenstein portions of Katie Case 10 minutes. You would think he would want to know more about the people he was paying 30 grand a month to. But apparently not. A few minutes of Brianna Koslow. But the lawyer says, so you, having participated in all or part of these many depositions, you have a pretty good understanding of what the rules of the road are for the depositions, right? And he says, I believe I do. And the one thing I will say about these two, or especially about him, is they're not very good at sentence construction. Like, we have a comment. I love a bit of humor on a Thursday night. So glad Justin Baldoni and Jamey Heath are our feminist heroes. I agree. Where would we be without them, without men like them? Honestly, where would we be? Yeah, as I was going to say, they are very good at word salading. They are very good at putting words next to each other, which kind of mean absolutely nothing at the end of it. So this is 110 pages, and I'm going to try and get through as much as I can, because I noticed towards the end it gets a little bit juicy. So he says that he has been drinking coffee. He's never had alcohol, which I'm kind of surprised. He definitely gives me some kind of like, maybe he's been in some kind of recovery vibe. I don't know. Like, especially when you listen to his public speaking talks, you just feel like, I did so many bad things to so many people. I threw my life away. It's so dramatic. It really gives the same vibe you would get from listening to an ex-addict. But he says he doesn't drink. So he says that Baha'i is not a religion. It's not a church, sorry. There's no clergy. It's a faith. And so then we get to, at some point, you and Mr. Baldoni became close, correct? When did that take place? 15 years ago, about. And what brought you from this relationship where you knew each other through his family relationship, this family relationship, to becoming close friends? Justin was hosting in his home. What would you call it? A gathering of sorts of different artists, people connected to the entertainment field. Not only the entertainment, but primarily who were talking about, wait for it, elevated concepts like how we can be better in the world. It's just the ignorance. Because if you wanted to be better in the world, you would have to take on board what other people think about you and how you behave. You would just have to. It's a no-brainer. And to talk about spiritual concepts, no matter where you were from. What your spiritual background didn't matter. That wasn't the point. It was more just to find out what we all agree upon and how do we unify in that. I saw him somewhere. He invited me to it. I can't believe he's saying this at a deposition. Sounds like a confessional. But I will say that at one time, and I don't do this very often, but I have got very deeply involved in everyone involved in this case. I did look at Justin Baldoni's mum's Instagram account, which is public. And they do seem to have these kind of gatherings at their houses. So I can see where Justin got it from. And you said that was about 15 years ago, correct? Correct. And then how did you become friends more closely from that experience? Objection. Through that experience, we started spending more time. Through that experience, we started spending more time. Started spending more time together. Do you see what I mean? It's like that sentence doesn't make sense. I admired him for his unique ability to inspire others to care about things they may have not thought about they cared about. And he's 15 years younger than I am, about 14. And I was impressed with his ability to inspire all age groups. Ms. Hudson. And so over the course of time, he became not just a close friend, but your best friend, right? One of my best friends for sure. You often describe him as your best caliber because you had kids in an apartment on a computer doing something. What? Wait a minute. You often describe him as your best caliber. Oh, they jumped a page. I was going to say, what the hell? Okay, they've jumped a page. Thank God. Caliber, because you had kids in an apartment on a computer doing something, didn't maybe have the same integrity. And because of that, the landscape changed. And then as for many things, you pivot. And you pivoted to Wayfarer? I did. When did you first become employed by Wayfarer? About 5 years ago. Yeah, so like I said, he was definitely doing public speaking for Baha'i. Whether it was paid, I don't know. But like I said, it feels to me very much like they were recruiting from him doing them public talks. I'm just saying. And how did you come to be employed there? I realized it's founded by your best friend, but how did you become an employee at your best friend's company? Let me do the maths. As I said, Justin and I have been friends and we worked together a lot before I was at entertainment. I'm at Wayfarer Studios. He had Wayfarer Entertainment. And I worked a lot on a lot of projects that he did. Oh, so this is before Steve Sarowitz got involved. Interesting. Interesting. What kind of work? Did music, scored, and adjacently consulted with him on things that he was doing. He then was about 5 years ago, was working through something. What? He asked for my consultation among some others. The next day, he called and said, I need you to be part of my company. And I said, my words were, F off. No thanks. Jokingly, Ms. Ezra, just so we're clear. Meaning like, I'm not interested in tending to your garden. I've got my own garden. So at first I was like, yeah. And I asked, doing what? He's like, your whole life has been in the entertainment world. So is yours, Justin. You know what we do. We work together. The way that you lead and operate and your understanding of things is, I feel, is what we need in our company. So, and what position did he offer you? There was no particular position. This was he says, I just need you in it. I agreed that I would at some point kind of take a look inside within, again, this was at a time when I was full-time spending on music and my own production company, and I was at a crossroad. So you were looking for something new, and he was offering something new, kind of lined up. This was in 2020, yes. And when was Wayfarer founded, to your understanding? Wayfarer Studios? Yes, 2019. And if I use the term Wayfarer, I'm referring to Wayfarer Studios LLC, unless I say otherwise, okay? You got it. So it was a fairly new company, yes. Were there any employees when you joined? Yes. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Around 10, maybe? It's so weird. Somewhere in that realm. You're a CEO of a company and you don't know how many people work there? So when you were hired, what position were you hired into? As I stated, there wasn't a particular position. In the creative world, it's just more come and bring your creativity, your observation, your consultation, and kind of like see where that that might look like. What that might look like. Well, I would beg to disagree with that, Jamie, because if you're working for a corporation, which Wayfarer Studios most certainly was, if you're giving your creativity, bringing your creativity and seeing what that might look like, some people might say that was taking advantage of your creativity. And you might want to protect yourself by, if you're offering something that's going to benefit them financially, making sure that you have a secure position. I'm just saying. There was a few titles before that, but yes. What was the first title? Interim COOO. And how long did you hold that position? 3 months. 3 months? I'm just going to look up for a second, bear with. When did Steve Sarowitz, I should know, but I've forgotten. I just want to check when he invested in Wayfarer Studios, because I think it was 2019. According to Variety, it was in July 2022. Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. How long did you hold that position? 3 months. And then what did you do after that? Title? Yes. COOO. So my understanding is COO is Chief Operations Officer. So it's a pretty high up role for someone that was just hanging around seeing what was going to happen with their creativity. Who was the other COO? Manu. And for some reason, his last name is escaping me, but I'm happy to give it to you when I record it. I can't believe it. You can't remember your colleague's name that you worked with that was a chief operating officer? Wow. And how long were you then CEO, COO, co-COO with Manu? Another 3 months. What was your next position? President. So you got promoted. How long did you hold that position? Until almost 2 years ago, or maybe a year and 8 months or so, when we brought on Tara Hanks. We gave her the title of president, and I became COO, CEO. To be clear, at all times, I was with both titles essentially the head of the company in that regard. They are just titles. All of these titles are ridiculous to me, anyways. I mean, this kind of explains why your company is such a mess. I'm not going to lie. Because this is a corporate company, and these titles are supposed to perform certain roles within the company. And I know this, and I am the most uncorporate person on earth. You see yourself as head of the company with respect to the day-to-day operations. Objection! Day-to-day operations, we have an operations manager. So, yeah, that's the COO. Well, what do you mean by head of the company? I just mean the top person that ultimately signs off on daily operations would be one of them. Our deals and most of our creative, of course, not meaning to admit the chairman, but their job is different, or their role is different. And in the president role, what is distinct between the president and the CEO? I didn't hear human resources in there. Human resources, thank you. So with respect to these positions, the VP of Marketing and Communications, that's Ashmi Dang, correct? Correct. The VP of Operations is Mitz Toskovich, correct? And then Brian Singer is the CFO, that's Chief Financial Officer. Correct. And have these people, as I've described them, held these positions since at least 2023? Yes. You mentioned Tara Hanks as the president. Andrew Caloff, is he the president of production and development? Correct. And he's also held that position since 2023? Yes. John Logan Pearson, is he the head of physical production? He is. Okay, and has he held that position since at least 2023? Yes, yes, he has. And then for VP of Creative, is that Angela Cardon? Yes. Has she held that position since 2023? She has. With respect to HR, is Cynthia Barnes Slater your head of HR? She is. You know, she describes herself online as retired. Is that not accurate? She retired she was a head of HR of, I can't recall the company. It's like GMC, or, you know, a big corporation. She retired from that. And then she does private working HR for smaller companies. So she's not retired then. So in a consultant role, essentially, yes. I don't know why she would advertise herself as retired if she still did consulting. That doesn't make any sense to me. And how long has she held that position with Wayfarer? Oh, and how long has she held that position? With Wayfarer? Yes. As long as I've been there. So is she physically present in California? She is. She doesn't live in Illinois? No. Let me rephrase that. Not as far as I know, but yes, she lives in California unless something's changed. And does Wayfarer have an office? Yes. Does Ms. Barnes Slater work in Wayfarer's office? Not regularly. Does she work from home? Yes. Is there anyone in human resources other than Ms. Barnes Slater? I know Mitz assists her in the operations level. Outside of that, no. something else that is occurring to me as I'm reading this is like HR are in charge or are responsible for what each person's job role is within the company and explaining that to them and explaining their rights and making sure that they have all the policy and procedure handbooks and make sure that they've given in all their correct paperwork and all that kind of thing, getting all their tax details correct. So I wonder if Jamie has had an appointment with her himself. It doesn't really seem like he has. Outside of that, no. Has Ms. Barnes-Slater always worked at home? Objection, yes. Does she ever come into the office? Yes. Which office are we talking about? Are we talking about Chicago or LA? Even I'm confused now. She does not have a schedule, so I would not be able to put a number on it. She must have a schedule. This is crazy. She must have a, if she is a HR consultant, like in a full-time role, she must have a schedule, I would say, or a contract or something, because otherwise she could go and work for someone else. Can you give me an estimate? It would be a guess. Once a month? Man, this guy is the chief executive officer, and he doesn't know how often a member of staff or a consultant, is coming into work. And who is Shakina Reese? She's my assistant, previous assistant. Okay. And AJ Marbury? She was Justin's assistant. And how long was Ms. Reese your assistant? There's a block of time that's gone, so I don't want to waste time thinking about it. This is going to be a long one, but a year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe 23, 24. 23, 24. And who is your current assistant? I share now an assistant with Tara, who is, sorry, Isabel, and I can't recall her last name. Because it's a wonderful name that's hard to pronounce. Is this guy for real? He's worked at this company for 5 years, not 50 years as well. I can't believe he doesn't know his assistant's surname. And Jarius Blackmon, was she your assistant at some point? No. Was she someone else's assistant? Jarius is a male. Oh, it's okay. And he works assisting Justin. Okay. So Justin has 3 assistants now that we know of. Because there was Will, Jarius, and AJ Marbury. Okay, now during much of Mr. Baldoni's, moving on. Based on those sales, doesn't come to fruition like a market, so to speak. Right. You can estimate, but you don't control a market. So based on those, I guess this is another conversation. Prior to joining Wayfarer as an employee, had you produced any films? This is a really good question. I'm going to hazard a guess. It's a no. As a on-the-ground producer, no. Prior, I'm sorry, you said prior to it? Correct. No. Had you been on a film set before? Many. In what capacity? As I mentioned, I was a composer for projects throughout my life. So I would visit for those. You would visit film sets as a composer? Are you sure? Without giving you a whole backstory, my family was also involved in the entertainment industry. So my childhood and life was only around entertainment, music side, and film side. Movie sets and television sets were a normal part. Yeah, that's as may be. But your dad, I'm guessing, was performing. So you would have been going as a guest, not as someone that was working there. Um, Not someone that was in charge. You said that you had not been a producer on a film though before Wayfarer, and what was the term that you used? On the ground producer. On the ground producer. Yeah, but that was, what does that mean to you? What's the difference between on the ground producer and whatever you did? Objection! Before it ends with us, prior to joining Wayfarer, you said you were not an on the ground producer. What did you mean by that? I misunderstood your question. Okay, because you asked me prior. I thought I heard you. What I interpreted your question to be is at Wayfarer. There are other films in Wayfarer that have producer credit or executive producer credit, and I was just being clear about that. But prior to Wayfarer, correct. So, prior to Wayfarer, you were a producer in with respect to your music work, is that right? Correct. So you had not been a film or TV producer prior to Wayfarer, correct? Correct. Man, that was a very long-winded way of saying you had no experience of being a producer of a production studio before you got that job. Did you see yourself as having any employees who reported to you as a producer? Objection. Yeah. Who reported you? Who reported to you, sorry. Different department heads would report to the producers, not necessarily Jamey, but using the term and title producer, department heads. He just called himself Jamey. Different department heads would report to the producers, not necessarily Jamey, but using the term and title producer, department heads. It's really sounding to me, like reading between the lines, that Justin was like, hey man, if you want to come and hang out as an extra, I can kind of pretend you're working here, and then we'll see how it works out, and we'll see if we can offer you any like openings as an actual paid employee. That's really what I'm interpreting this as, but he doesn't want to say that. Because if you were a producer, why would people not be reporting to you? And do you agree that it's important for any film project to have a process in place for reporting concerns about the workplace? Objection. I do. And that there be protocols in place to ensure a safe workplace? Objection. I'll just say that again. And that there be protocols in place to ensure a safe workplace, safe space. That thing you're absolutely obsessed with on your podcast that you've been doing since however long. I do. Do you think it's important for the cast and crew to be trained in the appropriate workplace behaviour? Objection. I do not. What? Do you think it's important for the cast and crew to be trained in the appropriate workplace behaviour? I do not. Wow. Okay. How often do you record phone calls? Objection. in my entire life, I've recorded maybe 3, maybe 4 in the same period of time. Very similar to how Justin answered, that is. Wonder if that's where he got the idea from. In your entire life, you've recorded 3 or 4 phone calls, correct. And in what, when were those phone calls recorded? Sometime at the, I don't know the months, but in 2024 of, I believe, around August, I believe maybe July, somewhere in there. And were all of those phone calls that you recorded related in some way to It Ends With Us? Objection. In some way, yes. Sunday, we received a production of 4 call recordings under your Bates label, starting with Heath. Are those the calls that you recorded? See, they busted him again. They've received 4 calls. And so then they both answer, well, I might have made 3 or 4, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 2, maybe, okay, 4. Let's say 4. It's sus. It's giving sus, not honest. So we've jumped to another page and they're talking about the phone call they had with Stephanie Jones. And based on some previous conversations with her, I was losing confidence. And based on some previous conversations with her, I was losing confidence. I was losing confidence. Interesting. And I knew this was a testy situation. And I wanted to document anything she might say to me. So he's recording a phone call with Stephanie Jones, one of the, reputation-wise, one of the best publicists in the entertainment industry, I would say. And notably, Jamey, Mr. Women Are Equal, a woman-owned business. Did you tell Ms. Jones that you were recording the call? I did not. Why not? Simply because I wanted to have documented that where she was or her state of mind was, and I didn't allow her to know. You didn't want her to know. I didn't deliberately think I didn't want her to know. I just didn't announce it. Were you planning to use it against her in some way? No. And you said you couldn't remember if there was a third party, a person listening into the call. I just don't recall, but if there was, then I'm not saying there wasn't. I just don't recall it. So you don't remember, for example, if they've jumped ahead. This one doesn't have the times. I just have to go by what page we're going to. So we're now jumping to page 82. Would be the call that you're mentioning. You're now identifying the names. I'm just not sure if all of that is accurate. I just wanted to show something very quickly as well, which was okay. So this was, that was in July. I just wanted to check. We'll come to that if it comes up. So I'm not certain who was on that marketing call. But if they're calling themselves, if they are identifying themselves as Danny, Gloria, and Josh on the call, yeah, I would. Yeah, it would be that. Let me finish my question. Sure. If they're identifying themselves as Danny, Gloria, and Josh on the call, then it would be safe to say that those are the people that were on the call. Is that right? Objection. And where were you located when that call was recorded? Objection. Do you mean state? City and state. Yeah, I believe I would have been in Los Angeles. And where in Los Angeles? In your office or home? I don't remember. Do you know where the other participants in the call were located? I don't. I don't know if they I don't know if they were working remotely or out of their offices. I don't. Again, every time they say this, I find it hard to believe because on most of the calls I go on, I mean, especially if it's not people you talk to all the time, and I don't think he did speak to these people all the time. You would kind of say, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing this right now" at the beginning of the call. Like that's normally how it goes. Or even when you're setting it up, you have to say what time zone you're on or whatever. I don't know if they were working remotely or out of their offices. I don't. And is it your understanding that Danny Maggin, Gloria Han, and Josh Greenstein work in Los Angeles also? Objection, it is. And why did you record that call? We were at a point where we were discussing and being told that we were not allowed to either go to the premiere or if there was, what that would look like separately. You see what I mean? He can't put a sentence together. We were at a point where we were discussing and being told. So if you're discussing it, you're not being told that we were not allowed to either go to the premiere or if there was, what that would look like separately. It's like he's speaking a foreign language. We were discussing if you were going to go to the premiere, or if you did, or maybe you could go separately. I think that's what he's trying to say. So that is a discussion then. We were trying to navigate through all of that, and all of that led up to that. And I did not know who to trust at this point. Very weird. Very weird. So I could listen, reflect back to it possibly. A lot is said, and I wanted to have some sort of memory of it to document it. Did you tell any of the participants in the call that you were recording them? I did not. And why not? I didn't consciously think of why not. I just didn't. Well, if you were just using it as a record, couldn't you have said, I would like to record this call to keep a record? Objection. I could have. Were you intending to use the call against the participants in some way? Objection. No. I like this question. I like Shapiro. No, I don't. Sorry. I like Ezra Hudson. I don't like Shapiro. Shapiro's Diddy's attorney. She can jog on. Ezra Hudson asks, who, if anyone, did you share that call with? Other than my lawyers, I don't believe anyone. Brian Friedman, you shared it with Brian Friedman, the extortionist? Say no more. Say no more. We jump to page. Yeah. I was just going to put up a comment. I'm not commenting on the relationship between Jamie and Jennifer Abel. I'm definitely not that. You've got the wrong content creator for that. Sorry. I really think that, if anything, Jennifer Abel is a kind of like tamey version of Melissa Nathan. So she's trying to do that whole, I'll just say whatever I think you want to hear. And I think Jamie bought it, and he was like, yeah, Stephanie Jones was way too professional for him. He needed a Jennifer Abel. So I think that's what was going on there. But I like this comment. Jamie signs off on checks but doesn't know he was paying to man. Doesn't know who he was paying to man the HR hotline. Yikes. Yeah. I mean, it could have just been some random phone line they put on there. Do we know they were even paying for it? I am really shocked about his ignorance about what the operations of the company. Like, it's shocking. He should be so embarrassed. He should be so embarrassed about that. That's why I'm enjoying this already. Okay, whose phone would you have borrowed for the Stephanie Jones call? Objection. I don't know. I don't recall the actual mechanism of what I did at that moment, but I could have borrowed someone's phone so I can record it. I believe you said you listened to part of the Stephanie Jones call. Did you do that after Ms. Lively filed her CRD complaint in California in December 2024? So he's asked someone to borrow their phone, which is, I mean, you have to know someone pretty well to say, can I just borrow your phone to record a phone call? I'm guessing it could have been an employee who was scared to say no, because we've seen what happens if you say no to them. I wonder what their version of it is. I believe you said you listened to part of the Stephanie Jones call. Did you do that after Ms. Lively filed her CRD complaint in California in December of 2024? I believe so. And did you send the call to your lawyers before either this Jones call or any of the 4 calls to your lawyers before you sued Ms. Lively? Objection. I don't recall the time. A lot of amnesia going on as well with these people. It's funny how he was so detailed about things like his and Justin's relationship, like totally weird, obscure things that we didn't need to know, his career path, and now important things he doesn't recall. Especially as he's saying that at this time, he wasn't sure who he could trust, and he wanted to have a record of this stuff to make sure he didn't forget anything. Did you announce to any of the participants in the call with Patrick Whitesell that they were being recorded? I did not. Why did you record that call? I was incredibly worried of what I was... I feel like we need the sad music playing while he's doing his deposition. I was incredibly worried of what I was in that moment because I have this anger. Sorry. Okay, page 92. And you said Jen Abel and Danny Greenberg. That's the agent at WME, I think, isn't it? Reside in Los Angeles. Do you have any reason to think they were anywhere other than Los Angeles for that call? Objection, no. And with respect to all of the calls other than the one with Stephanie Jones, what device did you use to record those? Objection. I was on the phone, so I may have used my computer or iPad, whatever. Something of that nature that was there. I don't recall which. So you believe you used some device other than your phone? Yeah, I was on my phone and I used, I believe, my computer maybe, but I don't know, I don't recall. Okay, and did you tell any of the participants in that call that you were recording them? I did not. And Danny Greenberg was Wayfarer's agent at the time. He's actually Justin's direct agent, or was his agent. So he adjacently would help with Wayfarer and have calls, but he wasn't officially Wayfarer's agent. I bet he loved that, having to do extra work for no extra pay. So Danny Greenberg was Mr. Baldoni's agent and Jen Abel was Wayfarer's publicist, correct? Objection! Correct. And she's also Justin's publicist, was acting as publicist on behalf of. And why did you record a call with them? Danny was calling to read to us a letter that we were told was written by Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. And they were going to articulate the call to me. What? It just doesn't make sense. Danny was calling to read to us a letter that we were told was written by Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Danny was calling to read a letter by Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively to you. And they were going to articulate the call to me. Articulate? So I recorded it, so I could have the letter documented. I'm sure you could have just asked them to send you a copy of it on text or email. Just make sure this was in fact right. I just wanted to pause for 1 second about this WME. So WME is William Morris Endeavors. They're like a huge agent. Them and the other one is United Talent Agency are probably like and then there's CAA. They're like the biggest agents. So if you are with them, you're kind of like in the big league, or potentially, unless you do something like this and mess up your career. So what's interesting is that Stephanie Jones is married to someone who's very high up in WME. I find that interesting. I'm not saying that they shared information, but it's likely that they would have been privy to the same information, if you get my gist. My question is this the employee handbook? Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. It appears to be. Okay, and you said previously that you've reviewed the employee handbook, correct? Objection. Yeah, I've reviewed this before. Okay, let's take a look at, I'm going to direct your attention to the document, Bates stamped 4947 at the bottom. Okay, And this is at the top, it says equal employment opportunity, anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, and anti-retaliation policy. Do you see that? I do. We had this in the Justin Baldoni deposition. And it begins by saying, which he sat all the way through, and it begins by saying that Wayfarer Studio provides equal employment opportunities to all employees. Do you see that? I do. And it also provides that Wayfarer is committed to providing a workplace that is free of discrimination. And then it provides a number of different categories that are protected from discrimination. Do you see that? I do. And those categories include sex. Do you see that? I do. And gender. Yes. And also pregnancy and marital status. I do. Okay. And you understand those are categories of characteristics that are protected under Wayfarer's policy. I see that. And you understand that also. That was my question to you. Oh my God. You understand that as best I can, not being a lawyer or an HR expert. I'm dead. I'm dead. Why do you need to be a lawyer or an HR expert to understand what that means? Every single employee in the company, that's from assistant, cleaner, a top executive, is going to read that policy. They all need to understand it. My God, this guy. I don't know how he's got to this stage in life, honestly. Fair enough. And if you go down a little, I don't think it's fair enough. I think he's taking the piss. And if you go down a little bit further on this page, there is an anti-harassment policy. Do you see that? I do. And this policy says that sexual harassment and any form of harassment based on any protected category is prohibited. Do you understand that? I do. And you understand also that the policy applies to all individuals involved in the operation of the company. I do. And anyone who comes in contact with the company. Objection. You understand that as well? Do you have a particular line that I can read? Sure. That can refresh my understanding of it? Sure. Next line that says that Wayfarer Studios prohibits harassment, disrespectful or unprofessional conduct by any employee of the company, including supervisors, managers, and co-workers. And then it goes on to say that the policy also applies to vendors, customers, independent contractors, unpaid interns, volunteers, persons providing services pursuant to contract, and any other persons who employees may come in contact with. I see that. Okay. And you understand that as well, to the best of my ability? Yes. I don't understand what he doesn't understand about that. It couldn't be more plain English if it tried. All right. If you could, I will direct your attention to the next page that ends in 3948. Thus is sexual harassment. Do you see that? I do. You skipped too far ahead. Wait. I skipped past a really important bit. It says sexual harassment is strictly prohibited. Did you understand that to be Wayfarer's policy? Yes. And did you also understand that under Wayfarer's policy, sexual harassment includes harassment that is not necessarily sexual in nature? It gives examples: offensive remarks about one's sex or gender. Right, but you understood that sexual harassment doesn't necessarily have to be sexual in nature. I understand that as long as we continue the sentence, because where you're not pausing at a comma or a period, so I believe that the whole sentence needs to be included. Oh. Let me start again. I understand that as long as we continue the sentence, because where you're not pausing at a comma or a period, so I believe that the whole sentence needs to be included in order for me to respond. Damn. Okay, Jamie. So you believe that part of the sentence that says sexual harassment does not necessarily have to be sexual in nature is not a standalone sentence. I didn't realize this was going to be a comedy sketch. No. Yeah, I'm not trying to argue that. I just don't want to give commentary on a portion rather than the whole thing. That's all. Well, setting aside, do you understand generally that sexual harassment does not have to be sexual in nature? Objection! To the best of my understanding, I think that generalization is probably correct, but I am no expert in this. I think you are an expert in it, Jamie. I'm not going to lie, I think you're an expert at this kind of behavior. You know exactly what she's talking about. Okay. And it includes, remember that text he said when he was landing the plane? And he said something about being in a relationship with the stewardess or something really weird and freaky. I wonder if he understands that to be a sexually offensive comment. Okay, and it includes, like you said, offensive remarks about one's sex or gender, right? According to this policy, it does. And it also includes verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature when the submission of such conduct is either implicitly or explicitly a term or condition of employment, or the conduct has the purpose or the effect of substantially or unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance by creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. Do you see that part? I see it. And you understand that the behavior is not. The conduct is prohibited even if it has the effect of substantially or unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance. Objection. I see what it says there. Okay, and I just want to make sure you understand, not just see, that conduct that has an effect is prohibited under your policy as well, not just conduct that has purpose. Objection. I see what it says there, and you understand that. I understand the general understanding of it, yes. And okay, what is it that you understand that to mean? I understand that, yes, any things in this nature are prohibited. And do you understand that it's prohibited even if it has the effect of causing these things, that creating and interfering with an individual's work performance, creating an intimidating, hostile or offensive work environment, even if that's not the purpose of the conduct. Objection. I understand what that states there, yes. And you, okay. And then if you go on to the next paragraph, yes, it says that sexual harassment may include a range of subtle and not so subtle behaviors. Do you understand that? I understand it. And depending on the circumstances, the behaviors can include sexual jokes and innuendo. Right. Right? I can see that there. You can see that, and do you understand that? That sexual harassment can include sexual jokes and innuendo. I understand that it's there, yes. This is like Jed Wallace Part 2. Well, I'm not asking you if you can read it. I'm asking you if you understand what it means. Sure, I understand that it's there. I do. I'm not asking you if you understand it's there. Objection. I'm understanding. I'm sorry. If you understand language that's being used here. Objection. My answer is, I understand that it's there. That's all I can give you. Wow. This guy is a dad. This is someone's dad. Someone that thinks he's been providing a safe space on his podcast that's teaching men and boys. Miss Hudson carries on. Bless her heart. That's all you can do. So you can't say whether you understand that sexual jokes and innuendo can be sexual harassment. Objection. According to your policy. Objection. I understand that it says that there, yes. Do you understand what those words mean? I do. Okay, and it also says that sexual harassment may include verbal abuse of a sexual nature. Do you understand that? I do. And that it also may include commentary about an individual's body or sexual prowess. Do you understand that those things can also be sexual harassment? Objection! I understand that is written here and says that. Yes, I do. And you understand that's Wayfarer's policy and that those things constitute sexual harassment. Objection. No, I don't agree with. I'm not going to agree with the last statement that those things constitute sexual harassment. I'm not an expert on this. Well, you agree that Wayfarer's policy says that those are among the range of behaviors that may be sexually harassing. Yeah, that's a different characterization. May versus are very different for me. So that's a distinction that was important. And you understand, though, that things like commenting on an individual's body may be sexual harassment under your policy. I'm going to say that I understand what it says here and I can follow. Do I understand it to the level that my attorney or my HR person does? I don't. Well, I didn't ask you that. Objection. I'm just asking for your understanding. I think I've testified to it. Okay. Well, do you also understand that your policy provides that touching in certain circumstances may also constitute sexual harassment? May. I think, again, I'm not trying to be combative with you. Combative or combative? You are a lawyer and you are really brilliant. And I've seen your work. And I'm not. So I want to be careful that what I'm testifying to is accurate and not. So I see that. But I also think the context, when you say touching, I think that depends on what kind of touching, certainly. Well, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just trying to understand, if you understand, what Wayfarer's policy says. I understand what Wayfarer's policy says, yes. And you understand that it identifies certain types of behavior that can be sexually harassing, right? I see that. And the behaviors that I'm reading to you are the ones that are included in Wayfarer's policy. Do you understand that? I see it. I see that. You see it, but do you understand it? I understand that. Okay. And it also includes physical, verbal, or visual conduct of a sexual nature that can be sexually harassing as well under Wayfarer's policy, right? Objection? Sure. Okay. And then I would like you to move down a little on the page, a little bit to the section that focuses on supervisor and manager responsibilities. Do you see that? I do. I see it. It says, if any supervisor or manager becomes aware of a violation of this policy, they are obligated to report the violation to Human Resources or Management so Wayfarer Studios can investigate and, if appropriate, take corrective action. Do you see it? Do you see that? I do. And did you understand in your management role, you had an obligation to report to Human Resources anytime you became aware of conduct that fell within this policy? Objection. If I became aware of conduct that fell within this policy, I see that I am obligated to report that. Okay. If I became aware of it, and you understand that before this moment, yes, okay. And have you always understood that's your obligation? Objection. Yes. This poor woman. I don't know if she drinks, but man, she earned one after this day. This is the simplest line of questioning she's doing here, and he's making it so difficult. If he didn't understand it, he could have just said, no, I don't understand. Would have saved us all a lot of time. Let's take a look at the next page, ending in 3949. Okay. And also, how inappropriate for him to say, I've looked up your work, I'm a big fan of your work. Who are you? Who are you to tell her you're a big fan of her work, Jamey? Seriously. Just answer the questions and get on with it. There's a section on investigation. Do you see that? I do. And it says, any reported allegations of harassment, discrimination, or retaliation will be promptly and thoroughly investigated by qualified personnel in an impartial manner. Wayfarer Studios will ensure that these personnel will use the evidence to reach reasonable conclusions. The investigation may include individual interviews of parties involved. and Wayfarer Studios will maintain appropriate documentation and tracking to ensure reasonable progress is made. Did you understand that was Wayfarer's policy regarding investigations? I do. Okay. And it also says at the end, if misconduct is found, Wayfarer Studios shall take prompt corrective action as appropriate. Corrective action might include termination from employment. Did you understand that to be Wayfarer's policy with respect to investigation? I do. Okay, you understand it now as you've always understood that, right? Objection, is that right? Correct. And you've actually been involved with investigations of workplace matters in your role at Wayfarer, correct? Objection. I believe so. Yes. Wayfarer also has an anti-retaliation policy, correct? It does. And it says, if there are retaliation against an individual for reporting harassment or discrimination in good faith or for participating in an investigation of a claim of harassment or discrimination is a serious violation of the policy and can also subject one to disciplinary action, including termination. Right? Uh-huh. Yes. Yes, I see that. Okay, all right. Did Wayfarer, was there a separate human resources department on the movie It Ends With Us? A separate human resources? Yes. No, typically movies don't have a separate human resources department. That's your understanding? With Sony taking the lead on all workplace hotline email type things if Sony is allowed to, he gets it all and agrees. Andrea is also aware. Who is Alex Sachs? So that was an excerpt from Alex Sachs's deposition, which I have read on 2 separate episodes. So she was suggesting that because she knew that there were issues on the set, even on the first couple of days, that Sony should take over the responsibility regarding HR. Who is Alex Sachs? She was our lead producer on It Ends With Us. Okay. And do you know what conversation she's referencing here? I don't know this conversation, no. I mean, did you have a conversation with Ms. Sachs about Sony taking the lead on workplace hotlines and emails for the production of It Ends With Us? We may have. I don't recall it. You don't recall it? No. Okay. And do you understand why Ms. Sachs thought it might be a good idea for Sony to take the lead? Objection! I don't remember this conversation. This looks like this was in March, so before production. So I think she's just, as we are setting up production on the ground, this looks... Oh, okay, it was before production. Okay. But she did say, Alex Sachs, she said that she felt from the get-go that things were not professional and they were very inexperienced. Okay, and you think it's reasonable for her to have made that suggestion? Sure. And do you understand her concern about Justin strike that? And do you understand that she was making the suggestion that Sony handled the training and have a workplace email and hotline because of Justin's role at Wayfarer? Do I understand that that is what she was articulating? Yes. I can see that's articulated here. My God, he loves that word. And do you understand why Justin's role at Wayfarer would have an impact on her view? Objection. I can't speak to it if it impacted her view or not, other than she's making a suggestion. She's bringing it to be aware, for us to be made aware of. And that's what I see. I just can't deal with his... It's like he speaks another language, honestly. Like, he'll say it in plain English and then he translates it into whatever this other thing is. So Mr. Baldoni on this production, he was the director. He was the lead actor. He was the chair. Objection. Correct. Of Wayfarer, he was. He was also your best friend, right? Correct? One of my dear best friends. Yes. Yes. So you can. Do you think it's the case that Miss Sachs was suggesting this, not making you aware of it? She was suggesting it because that was her role as a producer, to make sure that the production ran successfully. Just explaining it to you like you're a 5-year-old, Jamie. Because Mr. Baldoni held a number of senior positions within this production, and it may be difficult for Wayfarer to not be conflicted in its handling of HR matters. Objection. Okay, I'm so sorry. You just articulated, that is literally the 4th time he's used that word, a whole narrative that I don't read in here. So I don't read that. I also don't think he's using articulated in the correct way it's meant to be used. It's meant to be used. Articulate means you're very good at explaining things. When you say someone's articulate, it means they get their point across perfectly, really well presented. There's another word for it. See, this is where I personally feel like I've always been inarticulate. Like, I remember getting really upset about it when I was younger, and I still don't think I'm great at it, but I'm good enough, and not everyone has to be perfect at these things. I still think there's a place for me here doing this kind of commentary. But I think Jamie doesn't understand what articulated means, and he's using it in a sort of, it's almost like a way to say that she's not been straightforward with her questioning, which I think she really is. Like, her questions have no other meaning than what she's asking him. But he is trying to suggest that she's asking him loaded questions. And that's just a way of deflecting, because what he's realizing is, if I answer these questions, I'm going to make myself look like I'm in the wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, yeah, she's asking the questions like she's trying to put her spin on it. I think that's what he's doing by using articulated. What do you read? What do you think she means here? She's bringing up something for us to consider. Justin's role at Wayfarer. No, she isn't. I think they're both as paranoid as each other. Well, what do you think she means? Oh, we had to have a break. Mr. Heath, you said that you had been involved in some employee investigations before, correct? Objection. I believe I have. I said I believe I have. You were involved on investigations on the set that had to do with... Oh, I can't see the comments on my iPad, so I just came to have a look. Thank you, Kayla. Honestly, I don't care. It's like, I get such lovely comments, not just from you. There's other people that spend time to write things that really make sense. And to be honest with you, I don't really get too much bothered by trolls, and even when things, it really doesn't even bother me. But yeah, I think I'm kind of down to earth, and I'm bringing, like, because there's a lot of like real like legal specialists, like actual lawyers. In fact, quick pose. I know that a lawyer has listened to my channel. And they understand all of the terminology and the processes really, really well, but not everybody does. So I'm just giving you the layman's view. Jamey really thinks he's the smartest guy in every room he walks into, like when he talks over guests on his podcast. Yeah, that was what I was trying to, I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning, but I showed a clip of when they had a guest on who was talking about an experience of taking his own life, which, you know, is something that really deserves its own space and time. But then instead he goes into his own kind of like rival story about him and how his mother took his own, tried to take her own life, and how that's made him really angry. And I'm like, I just don't really think like you're really thinking about your guest here. It's just giving such like inappropriate time to tell that story. I see there's a little bit of tea here. I can't believe they included messages where they accused Stephanie Jones of sabotaging Justin, then threatened to end their contract if she tried to clear her name. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing with the ending the contract with Stephanie Jones was really their first, I mean, not their first mistake, but it was a huge mistake where they'd already made several mistakes. If anyone could have kept them out of this trouble, Stephanie Jones could have done a better job, I think, personally. But they chose war, they chose violence, they made their bed. I mean, you do not want to turn her into an enemy, and you do not want to breach your contract with her either, which is pretty much what they did. And I think that's why they were doing all of this stuff, to try and set her up, to make her look bad. I don't know about this whole website thing, because it did occur to me that he could have been part of that plan. I'm just saying, but I don't want to speculate too much. I only like speculating when I have like real something enough to go. There's not enough to say that, but it's a possibility. Because if they had like a whole load of, if they had all these people, public figures saying that Stephanie Jones was a terrible publicist, then he could have been like, we didn't have any faith in you because of all of this. Not because, you know, we messed up. We dropped the bag, fumbled the bag. Okay, he's interrupted her. Let me finish my question. You were involved specifically in investigations having to do with It Ends With Us, correct? There was one. Oh, so he's not going to talk about the Shay Norman. Maybe she is later. There was one. But we know that there was an investigation into Shay Norman, who, by the way, was the owner of Zeus Network. So I can well believe that he was getting up to sexual harassment when he was at work. But yeah, they definitely did a proper investigation and kept him on full pay. So they definitely understood how the process worked, I think, is the point of that. I'm going to hand you what we've marked as Exhibit 4. Exhibit 4 is an email from Jamey Heath and several other participants dated April 27th, 2023. At the bottom part of this email, Mr. Heath, there's a discussion about a complaint by someone at Local 52. Do you see that? I do. Do you recognise this email? I don't recall the specific email, but I remember the subject. But you received this, correct? The email, and participated in this email chain. I did. And it said there was a call from someone at Local 52 that needs the HR department information immediately regarding a complaint, correct? And then you respond, in response to a question, who handles HR at Wayfarer? You respond, correct? I see that. And your response is, we do have HR at Wayfarer. However, we may want to have an outside agency for the show. Why did you say that? I don't have a recollection of why I said this at the time. Looking at this now, do you have any understanding of why you might want to have an outside agency for that show? I would only be guessing. And what if you were guessing? What would you say? Objection! That I would only be guessing. But you don't know why Ms. Sachs suggested having an outside entity provide HR services, and you don't know why you suggested that either. Is that right? Objection. At this time, there was a constant flow of suggestions, as we were still building the foundation for many things, so I don't know. You were still building the foundation for many things? In 2023, this film has been in production. Alex Sachs said she'd been working with Justin for 1.5 years. In 2023. So I don't know. I don't know what my exact thought was at this time, other than responding to the email. And you didn't think that, like Ms. Sachs thought, that the fact that Justin was having so many roles in leadership might create a problem for dealing with HR issues. Objection. No, I did not think that. You didn't think that? And you have no idea why you might have suggested an outside agency. Is that right? Objection. This is over 2 years ago. I do not recall my feeling at the time. And you never did have any outside HR agency provide support for It Ends With Us, correct? We did not have an HR representative specifically for the movie, as what was determined was specifically indies and most other shows don't have an HR outside of the production company that provides it. Just to make sure I understand what you're saying here, you're referring to the bottom of this email where Andrea Jamey says, normally on indies there are no HR departments, so who should I send? Objection. I see that she says that here, but I'm also saying that any movie that I've been involved in, and anyone that I know that, any other producers have told me they've been involved in or studio, there is not an HR presence. There's no HR presence on movies outside of the production company. So you, when you say outside the production company, you mean outside of Wayfarer. Objection. Outside of whatever production company or the studio that is running the movie. So the studio that was running the movie here is Wayfarer, right? Correct. And okay, and are you saying that it's your view that Wayfarer HR was responsible for this production? Objection. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Wayfarer has HR, someone who you don't even know how often they come in, and doesn't even live in the same state. Because this was being shot in New Jersey. And movies don't typically have an HR person on set. So what is your understanding of who was responsible for human resources matters for the movie It Ends With Us? My understanding is I deferred to Alex Sachs ultimately, and Jill Sacco, who was our production supervisor, as well as Andrea, who was our line producer, that if there was concerns, would go to them if there were any brought up. They would learn what the next step was, should it need to go another step. And in this case, they had asked for Wayfarer's HR, or they wanted to know who, and we just followed what their suggestions were at the time. You could have just said that. You could have just said, we just followed what their suggestions were at the time. But you literally said a whole load of other stuff that's making me have to read this for 3 hours. Sorry. So you deferred the notion of human resources. Issues to Alex Sachs, Jill Sacco, and Andrea Ajamian for the movie itself. They were ones that were more experienced with how policy. Just say yes. I'm losing it with him now. Okay. Honestly, Jamie, you try the patience of a saint. I'm normally really, really patient. Were Alex Sachs, Jill Sacco, or Andrea Ajamian employees of Wayfarer Studios? They were employees of It Ends With Us. They were not Wayfarer employees, right? They were not. But you were, yes. But doesn't it still cover vendors and contractors in their policy book? And was there any other information given to anybody who worked on It Ends With Us that if they had a human resources concern, they should go to Alex Sachs, Jill Sacco, or Andrea Ajamian? Objection. From my understanding, the normal protocol that happens at all movies happened on It Ends With Us. We'll move to strike as non-responsive. Okay. Can you answer the question I asked? I'm happy to. I thought I did. You did not. Objection. Okay, give it to me again. Oh my God, I can't take this. My question was, I'm going to read it exactly how I asked it. All right. Was there any information given to anybody who worked on It Ends With Us that if they had a human resources concern, they should go to Alex Sachs, Jill Sacco, or Andrea Ajamian? Objection. I don't know if there was a specific email that said that. Or not any information. Objection. Verbal, email, text message. I don't know. Objection. You've never seen anything like that, correct? Objection. I don't recall. You can't recall ever seeing something like that, correct? Objection. I don't have a memory of it. As the CEO of Wayfarer, did you do anything to ensure that cast and crew on It Ends With Us knew who to raise concerns to if they had any? And that would not fall under the job description. That would not fall under the job description of the CEO. Oh my God. I thought you said it was the CEO's job to make sure that it was a safe workplace. Correct. For Wayfarer, you didn't consider your job to make sure that the set was a safe workplace? No, that's not what I said. Okay. Wayfarer Studios in our operations, but It Ends With Us is its own small business, and the people that were running that business, essentially me included for sure, were responsible for how the procedures went about on there. I deferred to those who were used to running those small businesses on the ground. Who ran It Ends With Us Movie LLC? That would have been a combination of Wayfarer and Sony. Wayfarer and Sony? I believe so. Sony had a leadership role in It Ends With Us LLC? Your question was who ran it. I believe the LLC was run, and I could be wrong on this, so I can confirm this. But was both the parties in that? Wow. I really was not expecting this. Well, you're the CEO of Wayfarer, correct? Do you understand that It Ends With Us LLC is a wholly owned subsidiary of Wayfarer? It may be. I don't have specific memory of it at the moment. So you don't know who owns It Ends With Us LLC, It Ends With Us Movie LLC. I know that Wayfarer is party to it. I don't know if Sony is as well. Oh my God. This is crazy. This is a CEO of a company with 120 million, what was it? $125 million investment? And he doesn't even know who owns the movie? I don't know where I've forgotten the figure. I'm sure it was $125 million. My God. So you think Sony might have an ownership interest in It Ends With Us Movie LLC? They may, I don't know. Okay, you remember when we looked at the employee handbook? It says that those policies apply to everyone who interacts with employees of Wayfarer, right? Understood. Objection. Okay, so you understood the policies also applied to people on the set, right? Objection. Sure. So going back to who ran the set or who ran It Ends With Us Movie LLC, you're saying you, as CEO of Wayfarer, you did not consider it your role as you might strike that. I believe you said you had a leadership role with It Ends With Us LLC also. Objection. No, I mean, I have a leadership role in the movie. In the movie? Okay. And you would consider yourself a supervisor or management for the purposes of the production? Objection. Correct. Correct? Objection. For particular roles. For particular roles. Which roles are that? Financial. Financial? But you don't know who owns the LLC? You don't know who owns the movie company? Like the movie? But you're the financial leader? Some creative. And assisting with department heads when they might need something. And it sounds similar to your duties as CEO, except you left out making sure that there is a safe workplace. Is that not part of what you saw your role as a producer of It Ends With Us and the CEO of Wayfarer? Objection. As a producer on the set, there were different hats that we all wore at different times, so sure. I'm making the distinction for CEO because, practically speaking, I'll just give you an example. Please don't. Let's take a Tom Rothman. Is this the same conversation or is it a different page? Oh my God, it is. Why are we taking Tom Rothman? Just answer the question, Jamie. Honestly, I don't know how anyone puts up with this guy on a long-term basis. Tom Rothman, who's the CEO of Sony, who's got 50 movies maybe happening at one time. Each movie has its own production, and they are the ones implementing and determining who is running that. Running what? He's not necessarily aware of every production and who is doing what. But Tom Rothman isn't a producer on all of these movies, on all of those movies. Exactly. And he has people that reports to him every day, probably, or I don't know what his exactly how hands-on his role is. But Sony is a huge company. And it's all about delegating. This is so weird. Honestly, I'm just blown away. Tom Rothman isn't a producer on all of those movies. How the hell he thinks he's going to outwit this woman is just beyond me as well. Like, she's so intelligent and patient. Fair enough. That's why you were. I'm saying as a producer, but you're referring to me as a CEO. So I'm just making a distinction between the CEO of Wayfarer and me as a producer. That's all. I think my question referred to you as the producer and the CEO of Wayfarer. Okay. And in those capacities, are you saying you did not see part of your job duties as ensuring the safe was set? Sure, the set was safe. Sure. I'm not surprised she's mixing up her words. Absolutely. Okay, all right. But just to go back to, I want to make sure I understand. It's your understanding that indie movies just have no HR. Is that right? Objection. That they don't have HR departments, that they don't have a representative on set specifically that's HR, that they don't have any human resources representatives. Objection. That typically the understanding is that you would go to one of your supervisors, production supervisor, or the line producer, or the AD. Also on call sheets, there are numbers of hotlines. And also you have your unions such as SAG and so on. You don't go to your union for a harassment complaint. You go to your union when a complaint hasn't been investigated, which is literally what she's done. And you've got a problem with it. My God, this is mind-baffling. Do you know whether there was a hotline provided to anybody who worked on It Ends With Us to call regarding human resources matters? I believe there was a hotline on all the call sheets that went out regarding if there was concerns of any matters. No, look, this is honestly, this guy does not speak in English. I believe there was a hotline on all the call sheets that went out regarding if there was concerns of any matters, that there was a line. That is not a proper sentence. If there was a hotline, who answered that? I don't know. You don't know who answered the hotline? I do not. Did Wayfarer pay for someone to answer the hotline? Wayfarer didn't, but It Ends With Us would have. Oh my God. It was It Ends With Us fairy paid for it. It Ends With Us would have. Were you responsible at all for any of the financial management of It Ends With Us? On a top level? At a top level? Okay. Do you have any recollection of ever authorizing or paying someone to man a hotline for the movie It Ends With Us? No, I would not have seen that specifically. You would not. And sitting here today, you don't know if that had actually happened, right? No, I do. No, I do know there was a hotline. There was a hotline? There was? But there was a contract with an outside agency to provide a hotline for It Ends With Us. I do not know. I was joking when I said that at the beginning, but it turns out I was on point. You don't know. You don't know? I was not in charge of that. So we haven't seen any evidence of a hotline in this case. If you have a hotline, would you provide that to your lawyer so they can produce it to us? Objection. There was a number. There was some number. I'm not sure if it's called a hotline, but there is some number that was afforded to people to call in case there was safety concerns. Okay, safety concerns or human resources concerns? I don't have the language in front of me. I don't know. Okay, all right. And again, do you recall ever seeing anything in which employees were told there is a human resources hotline that you can call if you have any concerns about the types of things we talked about earlier: harassment, discrimination, or retaliation? Objection. I don't know if there was that particular language or not. You understand there might be a distinction between physical workplace safety and human resources. Objection. Issues. Objection. I understand that. And you wouldn't expect employees, if they were given a hotline, to call for physical safety issues like someone being injured on the set. That they would automatically understand that that's the number they should call for harassment, discrimination, or retaliation issues, right? Objection. Understand that basic premise? Yes. Okay. 24. After, there was chatter online about It Ends With Us, and she was concerned that that chatter might have an impact on her movie, and she didn't want to associate with it. Oh, we're talking about Claire Ayub. Ezra Hudson asks, did she also ask that Mr. Baldoni not come to the set of Empire Waste? So, in case you don't know, Empire Waste was another Wayfarer production indie movie being made by a woman called Claire Ayub. And she testified. She was the whistleblower about Steve Sarowitz. She testified that Steve Sarowitz had said that he would defend his studio the same way that Israel would defend themselves against Hamas, which is extreme language to say the least. That was on Blake Lively's second amended complaint, and we actually heard the recording that she made of their work call, where he says it. We can do that in another episode if anyone wants. We could do a Claire Ayub episode. Never once. So that is not true. That's just a lie that Ms. Ayub was telling us. That is something the first time we ever heard. Expressed. I don't know the date, but years later. When you say years later, objection. Within the last 6 months, year, something. She said something to Ashmi in the marketing. No, this would have been in September of 24. She said something that she didn't want Justin to post something, I believe it was. Are you referencing the text message that Mr. Baldoni testified about yesterday? I don't know what text message that was. Okay. I've got the receipts for you, babes. Don't worry. So she had conveyed to Ashmi that she didn't want him to promote the movie based on what was going on. And in that, she also expressed, which I heard for the first time, or anyone had heard for the first time, where she said something. He was banned from set. But I'm sure if you do more investigation, you will see that there is nothing that leads for you to believe that. I'm helping you with that one. Oh my God, this guy. He's helping her, you know. Okay, there was also some testimony by Mr. Baldoni about, and also Mr. Sarowitz about Shane Norman. I just want to say on the subject of Claire Ayub, yeah. Who would you believe over these lot, These lot who can't answer one simple question directly, who literally try to evade answering questions where they know they're going to be shown to have acted against company policy, which is the point, as I said at the beginning, of this entire situation. Who are you going to believe? Claire Ayoub's name's been dragged through the mud, but yet no one's come out and said anything but she's ever done anything like this before to anyone else. She's actually like Colleen Hoover. She's like really respected, same as Alex Sachs. All of these women had their own followings, their own profiles, their own histories, where they'd made their own content, and they'd never ever had this kind of drama going on their name. These guys put them in that situation because they spoke the truth. That's my opinion on Claire Ayoub's testimony. Let's get on to Shane Norman. Okay, there was also some testimony by Mr. Baldoni about, and also Mr. Sarowitz about Shane Norman. Do you recall that? I do. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Sarowitz claimed that Mr. Norman, there were multiple complaints from multiple women about his behaviour towards them. Do you recall that? I do. And that there was an investigation conducted. Is that right? There was. Okay. Is this the agreement between Sony and Wayfarer for It Ends With Us, LLC? Well, I don't see a signature on it. So if you turn to the page that's bait stamped SPE BL00000049, ending in 49, you will see signatures. Okay, I see it now. You know what else I was going to say as well, actually, speaking of Shane Norman? Because where's all the online targeting to him? I've not seen anything coming up about him, and he is very public. Like I said, he's behind that Zeus network, and there's been so much stuff said about that Zeus network. But I don't think I've heard it about him. I've heard it about his partner. So that's really interesting, because I don't see all the haters coming out having a go at Shane Norman. For suing Wayfarer, when it seems like he was sexually harassing people. Do you recognize what the signature under Wayfarer Studio? Do you recognize the signature under Wayfarer Studios LLC as yours? I do. And do you also see the signature under It Ends With Us Movie LLC as yours? I do. And do you see this document identifies you as the president of both of these entities? I see it. And were you in fact the president of It Ends With Us Movie LLC? Apparently so. Okay. And do you recognize that? Is this the agreement between Wayfarer and Sony for It Ends With Us LLC? Okay, and we can come back to that later. So he's really going to pretend he didn't know he was the president of the film. That's quite something. Let's go to the comments. I'm trying to read through it as quickly as I can. Once it came out that a black man sued Wayfarer, the Baldoni stands plugged their ears and ignored it. It's not like they care about the sex. Exactly. That's the thing. That is the thing. I think it's sad though, because I think genuinely other women as well have bought into this idea that Wayfarer is an independent company, and because Blake Lively is so much better known, and we're going to get on. I really want to get on to Blake Lively. I'm not stopping. I'm in full pelt right now with this reading. Jamey Heath says his son's black girlfriend loved Blake Lively. That's part of his death. But yeah, it was just this whole thing has been about targeting a woman and women in general. That's what it's been about. That's why it gets to me. It gets to me because of the way these people use misinformation to manipulate us. And it ain't just about this. It's literally about everything. It's coming out left, right, and center. But most content you see is propaganda, unless you're 100% independent, which very few people are. But I am. Yes, I've made this point already, Kayla, about this history of using surveillance and trolling. Goes right back to Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. You've never heard of Claire until the depositions? No, I've never heard of Claire till the depositions either. I've never heard of any of them. I'd heard of Blake Lively, that was it. But I looked her up. I look everyone up, because that's what you do when you have a channel called Go Do Your Own Research. I just don't need to post stuff, you know. I post what I think is relevant. I would never go digging personal stuff about people and using it to discredit that person. It certainly gives you an idea of people's history. Like, for example, with Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan, they have done an exceptional job in hiding the truth from people. They have used their resources that they're not letting us know what they are, because they're pretending they don't know what they are, but they definitely have the resources to be able to delete and suppress anything they don't want people to know about them from the internet. And I don't think that's right, because that is a suppression of freedom of information. And that's what this case is about as well. It's about exposing how our freedom of information is being censored and exploited and destroyed by these kind of people, just so they can save some stupid guy and his studio and make a ton of money out of it. It's so dystopian. It really is. So we've established that Jamey is the president of the film. And we're going to come back to that later. Now, at some point, you all began casting for It Ends With Us, correct? Yes. And a key theme for the movie, It Ends With Us, is female empowerment, right? Objection? Yes. And did you think that you would need a strong actress to play the role of Lily Bloom? Objection? Yes. And were Sony and Wayfarer hoping to land an A-list actress? Objection? I think it's more nuanced than that, but eventually we came to the understanding that that was what we were seeking. Page 160. High maintenance at the time. Objection, no, because the truth is many people are high maintenance. Many people say things about other people. And so it wasn't a cause for concern. But being that you asked me, had I heard anything else, that's what I had heard. That was the extent of it at that time. Oh, I wonder what that was. Someone was spreading rumors that Blake Lively was high maintenance. I mean, the thing is, if you are an influencer, by definition, and she is an influencer, she has a brand, she has a massively followed Instagram account, she does content, and she stars in movies. It's not just being an actress these days, it's about doing all of that other stuff. That in itself is high maintenance, like, because people are so critical, so you have to look perfect all the time. So you have to have a team, you have to have a glam team, you have to have someone to get you outfits to wear. That's high maintenance, you know? Do you recognise this is a text chain that you and Mr. Baldoni participated in? If you allow me to read it, I can confirm that. I'm going to direct you to, you know, specific areas for questions. I'm just asking. I understand. Yeah. I can give you an advance. I'm not able to comment on something unless I understand full context. So I have to read it just for anything that you give me, I'm going to certainly read it. Are you telling me that every document that I give you, you need to read the entire thing before I can ask you any questions about it? No. Objection? No. But if you're giving me something of this nature, we don't know what he's talking about yet. My intention is I need to understand the context, that's all. I think, if I may say so, that Ezra Hudson is doing an extremely good job of explaining exactly the context, Jamie. I think you're just choosing to pretend she isn't. I don't right now. I'm only asking you if you recognize it as a text chain between you and Mr. Baldoni. It appears to be yes. Okay, so can I read it? You can take a moment to read it, but I don't think you need to read the whole thing for the questions I'm going to ask. Okay. How about we do this? Oh my God. Okay. You want to read the whole document before I want to hear my question? What? Yes? Because you're reading things to me. I can read for myself at this point, if that's okay. Go ahead. Thank you. Okay, thank you. You done? I am. I'm going to go back to what I just read to you, okay? Which was, wait for it, guys. Duh, duh, duh. If we get Blake on this movie, holy you would be directing and starring in a movie with one of the biggest female stars. Is that an accurate reflection of how you felt at the time you sent this text message? Now, you tell me, guys, why do you need context for that text message? Asking for a friend. Absolutely. All right. And then if you go down to the next thing you write here, you say, my son's girlfriend was over last night and she heard me talking about Blake. And she said, oh my God, I love her so much. She's a black 20-year-old. Was this an accurate statement when you wrote it? It was. So there we have him as a black man and his son's girlfriend as a black woman, and a young black woman saying, oh my God, I love her so much. What went wrong? What went wrong, Jamey? Okay, and then Mr. Baldoni responded, everyone loves her. It's pretty wild. Do you see that? Objection. Well, he says, it's pretty wild. Yeah. And then corrects it and says, wild. I see that. And so, and you understood that it was his view at the time that everyone loves Blake, right? Probably because they're not the kind of people that go on subreddits and someone was telling me about some other place that there was a lot of like Blake Lively hatred posted, but it was very, very niche is what I'm trying to say. Like, unless you went there as a troll, you wouldn't have known about it. You produced a video your lawyers produced a video in this case. Did you provide the video of a video in which your wife is in a tub with a baby to your lawyers to produce to us in this case? I see what she did there. I see what she did there. I did. Okay, where was that video stored? You mean at what point? At the point that you took it to give to your lawyers. Where did you get it? Where was it? I believe it was on my phone. It was on your phone? I believe so. Okay, did you edit the video at all before giving it to your lawyers? I did not. So the video you gave was the complete video as it existed on your phone. Correct. What in your memory did the video depict? It's our midwife, my sister, my kids, my wife, myself. Did I say my wife? It's our midwife, my sister, my kids, my wife, myself, our newborn baby. I believe we were singing or praying. The baby was crying, and then at some point we were whispering a prayer in the baby's ear. That's what you recall? Yeah. And your wife was in a tub? A birthing tub, yeah, a birthing tub. And you said she wasn't clothed, but she had a towel over her. Objection. The towel was more over the baby, I think, because, you know, when the baby came out of the water and you bring it up, then it's wet. So you put a dry towel to cover it. And in the video that you gave to your lawyers to give to us, were you in the video? I am. And are you nude in that video? No. Thank God for that. Where did your wife give birth? In a tub? She did. Were you in the tub when she gave birth? I was. The entire time? I believe so. You were there the whole time she was giving birth? I was. Oh, she's got him. She's got him. Who filmed the video? That particular one, I believe, was my daughter. Your daughter? My older daughter. Your older daughter? Did you give your daughter instructions for filming? I'm not sure. What do you mean? Did you ask her to film any particular part of the birth? No. She was just... Her and my sister both actually were filming different stages of the labour and the birth and afterwards. So did someone else film a different stage other than the stage that is depicted in the video that you gave to your lawyers to produce to us? Objection! I think I'm a little confused, but I think your question is, is there other video of the duration of my child being born and after and beforehand? Well done, Jamey. He's got it. He's got it. Sure. Yes. What other stages of the delivery are depicted in the video? Her entire birth. How long was the birth? Oh gosh, I don't remember. The whole birthing? Couple of hours? Couple of hours? I had a 4-hour labour and that was speedy. And it's all on film. No, no, no. I just mean the birth took a couple of hours at different times. But if you're wondering if the birth is filmed, it is. The delivery itself, it is. So the baby crowning and coming out is all filmed? Yes. The baby being delivered, yes, for sure. Were you in the tub with your wife when the baby was actually delivered? I was. I think I love her questioning. I'm just going back to your comments because we're moving on. He's the copyright holder, isn't he? I mean, the movie is owned by, it ends with LLC. So he's the president. If it's an LLC, then that means it's owned by shareholders, I guess. I'm not sure how the American system works, but I think it's kind of the same as forming a corporation. So if they would have formed a corporation and then given equity away, because I think I remember Justin talking about giving equity to people, including Jamey Heath in his deposition. Maybe he missed that when he didn't know what his job was. Okay. Then eventually they decided not to shoot it that way. So Justin, I believe it was at the Root, the bar we filmed the Root at. I was sitting over on a chair doing some work on my phone. Justin comes over and says, "Hey, I was talking to Blake. I was talking about your beautiful video with your wife. Would you mind showing it to her?" Because obviously Justin's seen it. I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't think twice about it. I went over, walked over to her, and then the rest, as I explained already, happened. You didn't say anything to Miss Lively before you showed her the video, because it was your understanding that Mr. Bow, that she had specifically asked for it. Objection. My understanding at the time was that they had just had a conversation, or just at some point had a conversation, and that she was expecting or that she was aware. So you didn't say anything prefatory like, "This is the video that Justin said you wanted to look at of someone giving birth while you're eating your lunch." I did say something when I walked up. I was like, "Hey, Blake, Justin had mentioned you wanted to see this." And then I immediately showed her the screen. You didn't say, "Is now a good time?" I mean, even showing anyone any video is like intrusive, I think. This is part of the harassment they're talking about. I just wanted to go back and see. Why were you talking about his birth video on the set? Yeah, because you're on the set. I thought it was while she was having lunch. Carry on. You mean, and was it playing at the time? I don't recall if it was playing or paused. Do you know what scene was specifically showing what was visible to Miss Lively when you hit play? Well, the first portion of the video, which again, she had only seen maybe a half second of it, is only my wife sitting here, the baby on top, and that's what she would have seen. So your testimony is what you showed her was the very beginning of the video. Yeah, for sure. Objection. Okay. Either it was paused or playing. I don't recall that, but for sure. Do you remember what date this was? I've come to believe and know that oh my God. It's like they've read my mind. Right. I just wanted to say on the subject of the birthing video, I think the most important aspect, I personally believe Blake Lively's, as she said in the original complaint, that she could see a woman with her legs apart. It's just a very, I just think, why would she write that down? If she was going to take this to court, why would she, there's something that could be disproved. It would have been a bad move from her. Which, if you believe she's a liar, potentially, but everything else that she has said has been absolutely spot on. So let's give her the benefit of the doubt. The point is, it was the day after they had shot the birthing scene. There had been a disagreement about her being naked to shoot the birthing scene, or being portrayed as naked, because she hadn't signed her nudity rider. That's what the argument was about. So the next day, Justin's carrying it on, bringing it up in conversation, because I'm sure as hell Blake Lively wouldn't have. That is harassment. And that's harassment. It's gender harassment. It's harassment like was listed in the book, in the handbook. It said about mothers or mothers to be, or something like that. But to me, it's harassing her because she said she wouldn't be naked giving birth. That's how it reads to me. Okay, that's all I've got to say. So Ms. Shapiro said, I'm just pointing it out. Ms. Hudson said, we're taking an excessive amount of time to read documents respectfully. Yeah, we are. We are, because Jamey uses word salad instead of answering questions. This is a 2-page document, and he insists on reading every document when he's just being read a text message like, holy shit, bro, if you get to work with Blake Lively, she's like the biggest actress ever. Like, you don't need to read the whole document for that. That's why it's taken so long. I understand, but I just want to ask you questions. So if you don't mind, if I could just bring you to the questions I want to ask you, and then if you need to look, that's fine. That was a suggestion you made. Let's try and do that. How about it? Accepted. Okay, thank you. If you would look at the second page, 35493, at the top of the page, it says from Mr. Baldoni, as read. I told Steve more today. Do you see that? I see it. And then you respond. I showed this text in the Wayfarer timeline episode, if you haven't seen it already. I talked to Steve last night also. I didn't share about the comments the ladies had feelings about. Didn't want to share anything you hadn't yet. Do you see that? I do. Then Mr. Baldoni responds, I shared with him today. I just hate that comment as well. I didn't share about the comments the ladies had feelings about. And also that contradicts Justin's testimony, because he said it was a woman. So that shows that's plural, ladies. Justin replies, I shared with him today. Do you see that? I do. My question for you is, the comments the ladies had feelings about, what does that refer to? Okay, so respectfully, you asked me about this, and there's context beforehand. So I would like to read it. All right, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Which ladies' comments were you referring to there? I don't really recall exactly what was happening at this moment, but I don't Do you know who the ladies were that you were referring to there? I don't recall sending this. But I'm not asking you if you recall sending it. I'm just asking if you recall which comments you were talking about there or which ladies you were talking about. I don't recall sending it, so I don't recall what I was thinking. So looking at it now, I would only be guessing, and I might be able to make a good guess, but I don't want to guess it incorrectly. Well, you read the whole thing for context, right? You read the whole thing for context, right? I did. Maybe Mr. Baldoni's response will help provide you some additional context. It's like community notes. I shared with him today. He said he should come to sit and remind Blake whose money this is. And I said, that's not the best idea. Right. Does this refresh your recollection that one of the ladies was Miss Lively? It may have been. It may have been, and any other lady might have been Miss Slate, right? It may have been, but I just don't know for sure. So how many ladies were there that were upset about comments? My gosh, he's so dumb. It may have been that the comments that you are referring to were the ones that Miss Slate and Miss Lively had raised to Ms. Janetti, correct? I don't recall sending it. I don't recall this conversation, so I really don't. I'm not. I just don't want to be wrong about something. So, did you ever talk to Mr. Baldoni? What it is that he shared with Steve? I did not. Did you understand Steve to be Steve Sarowitz? I did. Do you know what you talked to Steve Sarowitz about? Did I know what? What you talked to Steve Sarowitz about the night before? I don't recall what we talked about, but I know this was during COVID and a shutdown, so maybe it was an update. Are there any other two ladies who had, I'm sorry, are there any other ladies who had feelings about comments other than Miss Lively and Miss Slate? Objection! This is why I can guess. This is a tricky one for me here. You're asking me to deduce and I can't. I'm not asking you to deduce, says Ezra Hudson. I'm asking you, are there other ladies who had concerns about comments on set? Objection? No. But I don't see that I'm saying on set here. Okay. Are there other ladies that you knew about on May 28th, 2023, who had feelings about comments? I could guess that possibly it is about Blake and Jenny, since that's what you were asking. I could guess, but I don't know for sure. It's an educated guess, right? That's probably what you were talking about here. Objection. I'm doing my best to not just hit a wall here, and I can't say, okay, this is 2 years ago, and I don't know. Okay, it might be 2 years ago, Jamie, but you drew up a timeline in 2023, and you also looked at the lawsuitinfo.com website as it went up online because there's text messages of you talking about it. So you very much do remember the events or would have had to think about them. This is 2 years ago and I don't know. Okay, I'm going to hand you a document that we're marking up as Exhibit 13. Sure. Do you want this one? It has an attachment entitled Protections for Return to Production. We've heard of this before. I see it. Have you seen this email before, Mr. Heath? Yes. Just quickly, just briefing it, but yes. Oh, not the email that you sent as a text message to Stephanie Jones and Jen Abel because they weren't able to join a Zoom call with you. Not that list, is it? That email. Sorry. You understand this to be the cover email that sends to your Wayfarer's lawyers Miss Lively's protections for return to production, right? Yes, I see that. With the protections attached, right? I see that, yes. And you understand that's what this is. I do. Okay, who is Amini Meziane? Amin, by the way, is how to pronounce it. And she's our legal counsel at Wayfarer. She's in-house counsel. She is. And what is her title? VP of Legal Affairs. And Mr. Lanius is outside counsel? Correct. Okay, all right. And when did you first see this email and the protection for return to production? November 9th, I believe, the day it was sent. Okay. And when you received it, did you read it? I did. Yes, you understand that this is that he was saying how he viewed this document. Objection. I see that this suggests that he was considering this to be something that could be possible. I see, okay. And do you know how your in-house counsel, Emine, I think you said her name was, Emine, how she responded to Ms. Strasberg's email? Objection. I don't see that. Do you recall her saying that the protections were not only reasonable but essential? I don't recall the language. You can show it to me. Okay. Did you think the 17 protections that were in that document were reasonable? I think taking them as they are written, yes, I think they are entirely reasonable. Okay, at some point, did Miss Lively come back to the production? She did. And did filming resume? It did. What date did it resume? Do you recall? January 5th, 2024, I believe. Prior to returning to filming, was there a meeting at Miss Lively's apartment? There was. And were you at that meeting? I was. And if you go back to the protections document, okay, you will see, can I pull this one up? I think it's this one. Maybe it's this one. Okay, I see it. All hands in-person meeting before production resumes, which will include the director, all producers, the Sony representative, the newly engaged third-party producer, Blake Lively, and Blake Lively's designated representative to confirm and approve a plan for implementation of all the above that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of BL, her employees, and all the cast and crew moving forward. Do you see that? I do. Okay. And there was a meeting that included all of those participants in her apartment on January 4th, the day before production began, right? Yes. Okay, and have you read Ms. Lively's second amended complaint? I have. Okay, I'm going to hand you that document, the second amended complaint, which we have marked as Exhibit 15. Do you want me to read the whole thing? I definitely don't want you to read the whole thing. I'm going to point you to something very specific in this document if you turn to page 7. Okay, you will see paragraphs 19 and 20 refer to the January 4th meeting and the participants. Do you see that? I do. And the participants that are listed in paragraph 19, is that an accurate list of who was present? Chris Sergeant was also present for the beginning portion of it. Okay, other than that, is it an accurate list? Yes. And then in paragraph 20, the complaint says that during the meeting that Ms. Lively read the list below in its entirety, and then below is a list of 30 points. Do you see that? I see the 30-point list that's included in this document. Okay, and you see in the complaint where it says Ms. Lively said she read the list below in its entirety, right? I see that. Okay, and did you attend the entire meeting? I did. That was the meeting, by the way, that Justin and his Baha'i brothers called an ambush. Okay. And you said you've read the second amended complaint before, right? I have, but I don't recall every single detail of it. There's been many legal motions moving on around, so I did at the time, yes. Well, I would like you to take a moment and look at this 30-point list and tell me if you recall Ms. Lively discussing each of these things during the January 4th meeting. You mean, did she, I just want to be clear, discuss any of the things inferred in these things? Because she did not read this list. Your position is she did not read from a list. She did read a few things from her phone. She did not read this list, so I just want to know what you want me to do, because are you saying Ms. Lively read a different list? I'm saying Ms. Lively read a few things from her phone. Maybe 9 or 10 things that were not phrased in this way at all. When you say they were not phrased in this way, what do you mean by that? Well, nothing ever said no more. And the way that it's written was not, she read more. It wasn't firsthand, but it was less, it was not phrased like this. So each one of these 30 points addresses a topic. Are there any topics that are addressed in these 30 points that Miss Lively did not cover during the meeting? Objection. Yeah. Which ones? Okay, well, we can take our time going through them. I don't know how you want to do this, but like starting with number 1, no more showing nude videos or images of women. Then it says, including producer's wife, which insinuates that there were other ones. The BL and her or her employees. So yeah, we talked about that video again where she had brought it up. So you talked about the video, but you still couldn't remember which video she was talking about. So you talked about the video, but can you let him finish? So we talked about the video. We didn't talk about the details of it. We just brought up again that video was shown. Again, I apologized to her, recognizing that she was surprised by it. But that's not what you just said a minute ago. But this wasn't written, but that topic was. So no more mention of Baldoni or Heath's previous pornography addiction. I don't have a pornography addiction, so certainly she wouldn't have never read that. Certainly she wouldn't have never read that. She wouldn't have ever read that. That's a double negative. She wouldn't have never read that. And I don't know what that refers to. So no, that was not discussed. Did she talk about Mr. Baldoni referencing pornography addiction during this meeting? I believe she mentioned something about it. I mean, he literally says it to pretty much anyone he's doing an interview with. So it's really not hard to believe that he would have said it. Okay, did she talk about wanting to neither her nor her employees to hear personal experiences of other people's sex lives, including as it relates to spouses or others? Where? What numbers are you reading, please? 3. I think she said something about that. Did she talk about number in number 4? Did she say that she wanted no discussion about with her or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts either, as either the abuser or the abused? I do not recall that. You don't recall that? I do not. Okay, did she recount a story in which Mr. Baldoni talked about times that he had engaged in actions with women without consent? No. She didn't talk about that. Okay. Did she talk about the description, anyone describing their own genitalia to her and asking that not to happen? No. She didn't talk about, let me rephrase it. No, not that I remember in any sense. Yeah, and he did it very aggressively. This is Ryan Reynolds they're talking about, I guess. He did it to me as well. More at him. It may have been the hardest thing I have ever witnessed someone talking to another person with such belittlement. So after that meeting, did you have an understanding that there were things that were happening in connection with filming this movie that Ms. Lively was uncomfortable with. Objection. I understand that she had shared some things that did not make sense and I believe were fabricated. You believe were fabricated? Not all of them. Uh-huh. Either distorted, or fabricated. Now, did you think it would be a good idea to conduct an investigation at that point? Objection! A letter started with, as we went back to it after this meeting, within lieu of an HR report, we would sign these things. And if any, at this point, if any of these things were referencing that, there was nothing to investigate. In lieu of a formal HR process, I think it said, yes. So you decided that since Ms. Lively said in November, in lieu of an HR process, there was no need for an investigation. Objection. We did not determine that was necessary. You did not determine? You so determined it was not necessary. Is that right? We did not determine it was necessary. We never came to the point to think that it was necessary because in it, while she was expressing it, it was very confusing because she was not. It was almost like he was a child. Maybe because he acts like a child. Sorry. Not that she felt threatened or that she felt, it just felt like he was a child and it was talking that. It was talking that? What? It wasn't. So our perspective from that point was, oh my God, here he goes. It wasn't. So our perspective from that point was, once we left and had some conversations with Ange, and Justin was a little frozen because of the aggressive nature of it. She could not wait to get back to work tomorrow, and we moved forward. So basically, what you're saying is Ryan Reynolds had a go at Justin and said, can you not talk to my wife about your genitalia, about your circumcision, about your watching porn, and asking her about when she climaxes, and kissing her when you're not meant to, when it's not in the script, and all the other stuff. I mean, he had extremely good reason to be angry. He had extremely good reason to be angry, in my opinion, and knowing nothing about him. Oh my God, really? I've just checked the comments. I really want to hear. I really want to hear about Carnival of Love. Never believe a lie. I have made a video about Justin. I've made several videos about him because I was literally like, who is this guy? So yeah, I think that one, I think it was when I made the red flags that were missed about Justin Baldoni. That was when I really started thinking, like, who the hell is this guy? Before that, I was more talking about the misinformation and how the publicists had worked with the Jed Wallace to do the astroturfing. So yeah, I did. When I first saw that video, I was like, what in God's name is this? Like, when he said there is no rich or poor, I couldn't believe it, because it just made me think, you know, they were trying to say that Blake Lively was tone deaf, and I'm like, this is the definition of tone deaf. Like, you've literally gone down to Skid Row, which I've been to Skid Row, and set up this thing just for your content, to pretend like we're all one big happy family. It was insanity. But anyway, let me crack on because I want to get this finished. Really good to see you. I want to know as well whether Justin actually did anything to help homeless people, because I really don't believe he did. I really do not believe, but you'll have to let us know if you have any inside info. Never believe a lie. No, Did Miss Lively, did you consider that other people might be uncomfortable on set? No, we hadn't heard anything else about anybody being uncomfortable. There was a lot of insinuations about, I think she brought up saging. Oh my God, yeah. All of these things are literally no-goes. And you know what? I was thinking, what on earth would you be doing saging a set? And now, you know why I think he did that? Because he knows that he has bad thoughts, that it's him that is the problem. So, because when I was reading that message between the Baha'i bros, the group chat, that's what they were talking about, some devil thing. And I'm like, that's what you use sage for, to get rid of spirits and devils. This guy, man. I think she brought up saging, talking to her dead father. There was a lot of stuff that was mixed in here that was just, she didn't like Justin. I don't blame her. I really don't blame her. She didn't like me. No comment. She didn't like that he cried. She mentioned that. There was a lot in there. So there was a lot going on. Did you actually have a conversation and make a decision not to do an investigation? No. Objection. Did the topic of an investigation come up at any time prior to receiving Miss Lively's BRD complaint? No, not that I recall. At some point, did you have a dinner with Colleen Hoover in connection with the trailer launch? We did. And when was that? You're going to have to refresh my memory. I will do that. I think it was, 2 or 3 months before. 2 months before release, I think. 3 months maybe, but I don't know. Jonathan, how much more time? We've been on the record for 5 hours and 14 minutes. And I felt every second of it. Do you recall what day the trailer launch event took place? Was that May 6th? I don't recall. You asked Ms. Toskovich to put together a timeline on June 17th, correct? Are you referring to this document? Yes, I see that. Okay. And Exhibit 17 is an email forwarding a timeline. Do you see that? I do. And then Exhibit 18, I'll represent for the record, is the document that was produced to us that is reflected in the attachment to that email that says document produced in native format. Can you repeat the last thing? Sorry, I was finishing 17. So Exhibit 17 is an email forwarding a timeline. Do you see that? I do. Okay, and then it says on the second page of that email, produced in native format. I do. Yes. I'm representing to you that the native format that we received in the production from your lawyers is that document. Okay. Is this document, Exhibit 18, the timeline that you asked Ms. Toskovich to create? It looks to be so. Okay. Why did you ask Ms. Toskovich to create a timeline on June 17th? Just to have a timeline of our whole experience of the movie. Your whole experience of the movie as it relates to Miss Lively? Just the timeline of what we experienced throughout the movie? Yes. For what purpose? So we can have a record of the last year and a half of what we have experienced. Why? There was a lot that went on over the year and a half on different levels, production and all levels. I just wanted to have a timeline of it. Well, your text message to Miss Tokstovich doesn't say anything about things that happened during production in general, right? Objection. Right. All of the things that are in your text message to Miss Toshovich, I hope I'm pronouncing her name okay, relate to Miss Lively, correct? Objection. Yeah, I see that in the In the text message, yeah. So why did you ask Ms. Toshkovich to create a timeline on June 17th, 2024 related to Ms. Lively? That was one of the aspects of our whole time on the movie, and I also wanted to include that. Again, this is a sentence that doesn't make sense, but I can't be bothered because I want to get this finished. Well, you didn't say reference anything else, correct? You only referenced issues related to Ms. Lively in your text messages to Ms. Toskovich, correct? Objection. In this particular text message, that's all it speaks to. Yeah, that's all you said when you asked Ms. Toshkovich to create a timeline, correct? Objection. In this text message, that's what it refers to, yes? Oh, sorry, that was him answering. In this text message, that's what it refers to, yes. Do you have another text message? Objection. I don't know. Okay, well, my question to you, Mr. Heath, is why you were asking Ms. Toshkovich to create a timeline that references events related to Ms. Lively on June 17th, 2024. Our experience of the movie, and at this point in June, we were unsure. Justin had lost the movie, I think, by this point. See that? Justin had lost the movie, I think. He doesn't even know, and he owns the movie. It's so crazy to me. It's so crazy to me how they do not have a grip on reality. Justin had lost the movie, I think, by this point. We were dealing with a lot of conversations with Sony about how to navigate moving forward with him as the director. So he hasn't lost the movie then. We've got the release of the movie coming up. And in all of this, and being confused of where we stood with all of this, I just wanted to have documented just our whole experience with the movie. Oh. What is the saying? Jesus, take the wheel. That's what I feel like right now. Oh my gosh. And the incidents that you identified to Ms. Toshkovich are incidents that you were aware that Ms. Lively had raised concerns of prior to June 17th, 2024. Can you repeat that, please? The incidents that you raised to Ms. Toshkovich were incidents that you were aware of prior to June 17th, 2024, that Miss Lively had raised concerns about, correct? Objection. In this text message, it references some of those, yes. Yes. So that you were aware of the incidents that you told Ms. Toshkovich about prior to June 17th, 2024, correct? Objection. Was I aware? Yes, I was aware that Justin met with the trainer. I was aware he asked about the weight. I was aware of some of those things, yes. Well, you were aware of all of them because you wrote them down, right? Yes. And you wouldn't have been able to write them down if you weren't aware of all of them, correct? I was aware. Objection. I was aware that these were included, yes. That these were all things that Ms. Lively had raised concerns about, correct? Objection. Some of them not. Okay. Which one of these lists are not things that Ms. Lively had raised concerns about that you were aware of on June 17th? Objection. Well, just as I go through it, when we shot the graveyard scene, when we had a meeting at Blake's home, why did you want to have a record of when you had the meeting at Blake's home? Mr. Heath, as Wayfarer's sole human resources representative, this is after a break at 7:34 p.m. I wonder what time they started. I should have checked. Has Ms. Barnes-Slater, to your knowledge, provided human resources support to any Wayfarer production? Objection. I don't know. You're not aware of Ms. Barnes-Slater providing human resources support to any Wayfarer production? Objection. I don't know. Did Wayfarer provide copies of its handbook to the cast and crew of It Ends With Us? I don't know. Did Wayfarer provide access to its employee handbook to the cast and crew of It Ends With Us? Objection. I don't know. Do you know whether a training was provided to cast and crew regarding respectful workplace on It Ends With Us? Objection. Yes. Do you know who attended that training? I believe all the crew. Are there any records reflecting who attended the training? I don't know. Who would know? I don't know. You don't know. You don't know who would know about the records? I don't. Did you have any discussions with Ms. Barnes-Slater regarding providing human resources support to It Ends With Us? I don't recall. You have no specific recollection of talking to Ms. Barnes-Slater about providing human resources support for the film? Objection. The one complaint that came in, she provided support. That's all I know. Which complaint is that? When the sound mixer was not hired. You're talking about the complaint that came through Local 52 that we looked at earlier? Correct. You said Ms. Barnes-Slater provided support for that. Objection. I believe so. And what support did she provide for that complaint? Why do you believe Miss Barnes-Slater provided support for that complaint? That's what I can recall. That's all I recall. And in what manner did she provide support? I don't recall. At that moment, I don't recall. Did you speak with Miss Barnes-Slater about the complaint from Local 52? I have a vague recollection of speaking to her. Did she give you any advice on how to proceed with respect to that complaint? I don't recall. I know specifically they had asked to speak to HR at Wayfarer, so I put them in contact with him. That's what I remember. Did you discuss with Ms. Barnes-Slater providing support to address any cast or crew concerns on It Ends With Us? Objection. I don't recall. You don't recall having done that? I don't. What is the basis for your understanding that concerns of employees on an independent film should be raised to the line AD or the production supervisor? Objection. That's what I was told. I don't know. Did you disclose any of the alleged incidents related to Ms. Lively to Ms. Barnes-Slater? Objection. No. Did you ever speak with Ms. Barnes-Slater about Ms. Lively? I don't recall. So you didn't disclose any of the incidents, but you don't remember? I think it makes sense. Make one piece of his testimony make sense. We're on the last page, guys. Did you ever speak with Ms. Barnes-Slater about Ms. Lively? I don't recall. Did you ever speak with Ms. Barnes-Slater about Ms. Slate? I don't recall. Did you ever speak with Ms. Barnes-Slater about any concerns on the production of It Ends With Us? I don't recall. You have no recollection of having done so, correct? Objection. I don't recall. I do not. Earlier, we talked about call recording. That's the last page. I believe we're at the end. Three hours. You're only popping in to hear me speak live and say hi. I'm near the end of Nobody's Girl. Thanks for it. It helps having you filter the triggering. Oh, lovely. Yeah, that's why I did it. That's why I did the reading of Nobody's Girl. But unfortunately, I've deleted the last episode by mistake. So that's 3 hours of my life that will never be recovered. I tried to put it into the Wayback Machine. I tried everything. It was a really stupid mistake. So I was just doing a test. However, if I get through all of these documents, I may do a rereading because it is a really good book. But I'm just going to read your comments about the festival that Justin Baldoni put on called Carnival of Love. It was 80 film industry organizations. Okay. Yeah, I imagine it was. So it's not just him. He's just the one that uses it. I only found out that it was him that started it. Oh, he started it. It is a wholesome, good-natured event, which I saw helped hundreds of homeless, though. There are so many people in LA doing their charity thing. PR. Yeah, but it's PR, exactly. It's PR. Like, he might be giving them free water for the day or something, but that's not really helping anything long term. That's my point. You know, it's what you call it, virtue signaling. It's literally, he is literally the definition of virtue signaling. And that was one of the first signs of it. And I just felt like the whole tone of his videos about it were just so unaware. Because to be standing in LA, which is literally like, you've got like $1 million buildings next door to people that live in a tent that have literally nothing. Because they have, you know, they don't have, for whatever reason, because I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on down there. They don't have access to a regular income. They don't have any stability in their lives. And those are the issues that are never talked about. And then because it's too much of a big subject. But there's a lot of talk about, you know, using homeless people for content is very exploitative. There are a lot of people helping homeless every day, I'm sure. Tourism. Yeah. I think it's trauma tourism. I think he specializes in trauma tourism. And like I said, it goes all the way back to the TED talk, and the TED conference goes all the way back to 2000s when Jeffrey Epstein and his billionaire tech investor buddies were putting it all together. So it's not that hard to do the maths. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's been a long evening and I'm not going to get into the whole conversation about homelessness. Thank you guys for all the comments and support, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Take it easy.